I firmly believe that anybody can get into game development, and today I want to explain why I think that. So what do I mean by this entirely? First of all, there's a huge asterisk on what I just said. It's really anyone with a half-decent computer can step into game development, which is fairly common nowadays. As technology has evolved, we've been able to communicate with people from like half across the world, and we have all of these people who are communicating their ideas and pooling it together into this one large hub of information, and as a result, resources for learning pretty much any skill, but especially game development, have never been more accessible. I have not paid a single cent for any of the tools I use. They all just come from persistent searching. And frankly, if you've had even like the slightest thought of making a game, you should definitely give game development a try. It mixes so many disciplines together, you're definitely bound to walk out at least liking one part of it. But even if you don't, at least you tried. But who am I to be saying all of this? Well, first of all, my name is Toby Boone. Obviously, I'm a game developer. You can see some of my work here. But I've been a hobbyist game developer for about 3 years now. I work entirely on my own with a couple exceptions, but that pretty much means I do all the music, programming, animation, and art for some of the stuff I work on. Of course, I've developed 2 games so far, and I've co-developed 2 games with 3 other people. Usually I'm like the head programmer, and sometimes I do a little bit of music direction. And I've released 2 of these games. One of them was with those 3 other people, and one of them was entirely on my own. Currently, I'm developing a roguelite platformer all by myself, which is what this is. And probably like a lot of you guys, I never thought I could walk down this path. I simply thought that programming would have taken way too much time to learn, and like my art was really shabby, and I just couldn't do it. But here I am now. So basically, the reason why I think that anybody can do game development is because there are so many options that are just waiting out there to be found. So as long as you know how to search for it, you're definitely going to find something. There's YouTube tutorials, there's so many websites of people blogging and maybe just writing down their thoughts and their tutorials. There's something for literally everything. Especially for art and music theory, there are so many different resources that you can use to learn, and it's just really great that you don't have to scour as far as you might have used to in order to find such information, because there's so many people out there who are putting out their thoughts and all of their learnings, and so that other people can learn as well. Code forums and community servers for programming. These are both full of people who are just like you, who have issues just like you, and they've probably found answers that you need. As long as you look for it, you're gonna find the answer. In fact, I literally just had to experience something like this. I was looking for a server hoster so I could test out some online stuff, and I've been searching for about 20 minutes, wasn't getting anywhere, decided to check out a community server for the game engine that I use, and I managed to find something that was completely free. And if you're a student, which I imagine most people who are watching this are, just take a class. Check out some of the electives that your schools offer. Maybe take a programming class or like an art class. High school is the time for you to really develop your skills and figure out what you like and what you don't like so that you can move into college pretty comfortably. But above everything, the best resource for learning is just practicing. As long as you keep practicing, you'll eventually pick up on some of those things. Even if you're not able to name them, you'll be able to pick up on some things that are, correct when you're, doing art or you're doing music. And that alone is going to be enough to really expand on your learning, and you'll be able to make stuff a lot better, a lot faster. So why might you enjoy game development? Well, this is mostly my perspective. It's so damn satisfying to put everything together. You have all of the art side, and then you have the science side. And it's fun to do art on its own, maybe painting a portrait or something. It's fun to do music on its own, maybe, I don't know, creating like a single or an album or whatever. But when you put all of these things together into one cohesive piece, the gratification that you get from it when it's all done is just totally unmatched. And it goes without saying that you learn a lot about a lot of different things, especially as a solo developer, when you have to do all of the music, all the programming, all the animation, all the art, all of the UI design. Yeah, you're going to be looking at a lot of tutorials, and you're going to be learning a lot of stuff. And it's definitely going to stick with you if you just keep going into the next projects. As I said before, every experience is transferable. And the possibilities for the future are really endless. Maybe you might not have liked music at all, but you might have really liked doing the art, and so that's just a possibility. You could become a game artist or something. And then maybe it's the opposite. You didn't like the art, but you like the music, which is kind of the boat I'm in. There's so many different things that you could do once you gain the experience of doing game development. But okay, it's 2025, and there's just one topic that we can't really avoid at this point. So let's talk about AI when it comes to coding, when it comes to art, and when it comes to music. I'm not going to deny that I've used ChatGPT before. If I were completely denouncing it without admitting that I've used it in the past, and even a little bit right now, that'd be completely hypocritical of me, and I just can't stand for that. In truth, ChatGPT is actually a pretty good way to learn foundations of concepts and having it do small or simpler tasks. Once you start asking it some more complex tasks, it's almost certainly not going to be able to fix it, or it might not be able to give you 100% accurate information, which is why you should always make sure you're checking sources against it, because while it is getting better, it's still not 100% accurate, and as a result, we always need to be careful. But once you start relying on it past that point, you've totally lost control of what you're doing. You're now at the mercy of whatever the AI you're asking spits out. And if it's not right, you just have to keep prompting and prompting, getting those slight details corrected, and at the end of the day, it's probably not even going to meet the 100% of your vision. I said previously that you learn a lot of different things, especially as a solo developer. Well, when you're prompting an AI to make assets for you, what are you really learning? All you're learning is how to tell someone what you want, and that skill is not nearly going to take you as far as learning how to do things yourself. And frankly, if you're coming to the point where you're asking AI to make assets for you, why are you even pursuing game development? For money? For a quick joke? Really try to remove those motivations and ask yourself why. And if there really is no reason, then game development isn't for you. Now, I'm not going to say that every person that uses AI has these intentions. There are some people who might not have the time to learn these skills. And you know what? I understand that. It's hard to find time, especially nowadays. But maybe you don't need to tackle the whole of game development. If you just really like the art side of it, you can just do the art side of it. There's still employers out there who are looking for people with that skill set. And if you're working on a project personally all by yourself, even taking it just a little bit day by day is still progress. And you're still learning from it at the end of the day. And I think that rushing out a project that doesn't even contain 100% originality is always going to be less satisfying than taking it slowly and eventually getting out something that you're really proud of. What I'm trying to say is that game development is not just a means to an end. You also need to cherish what you're doing as you're developing it. And really, the only intention that I see that people would use AI for is just to make it to that end as quickly as possible. And I really think that once you're doing that, you're missing the point. So what's my approach for getting into game development? If you're like me, you've probably tried in the past to try to get into it, but you just totally fell into a roadblock. Like personally, I started out with Unity in like 8th grade and I just couldn't figure it out. So I'm not saying that these things are things that I all did personally, but these are things that I've come to realize are like probably the best practices for learning. So probably at the very beginning, you need to get a grasp on coding fundamentals first. Think like, I don't know, your variables, your data types, your for loops and while loops, your subclasses and superclasses, all of these things, because it really frames what you learn in those tutorials when they just start writing code. You're not just copying what they're typing, you're realizing what they're doing, what each of these parts of the syntax are doing, and it helps you later on to extrapolate maybe these parts of the syntax for your own purposes. And that's honestly probably the only reason I didn't quit when I tried again 3 years ago now. I learned my coding from a Python class I took in 9th grade, but there's plenty of internet resources out there to help you learn. I know that digital learning is not for everybody, but I'm sure if you really persevere, you'll be able to learn a lot, and you'll get to the point where you're ready. Once you've got all of that in order, it's time to start following short but multiple tutorials. As I said before, every experience in game development is quite literally transferable. Therefore, the more experiences, the better. Learn the ins and outs of the engines. Really follow what they're saying. Be conscious of what you're doing. Don't just copy what they're doing. Really think about and cache into your memory what they're doing, like what are the different settings they're tweaking, all of these things, so that later on when you're doing your own project, you can extrapolate these tutorials for your own needs. And some of these steps might overlap. Like for example, maybe some of those tutorials out there will even explain some of these coding fundamentals. Hopefully they do. That's way more important than just copying what they're doing. But above all, take your time with it. Take it really slow, because inevitably there's going to be some kind of issue that you run into while you follow what they're doing. And it can be really frustrating, especially if you're trying to speed through it. So take your time, really digest what they're saying, and do it slowly and methodically. Now, when you are ready to begin moving on to your original projects and stuff like that, once you feel that you are ready, do not, and I mean do not, get overambitious about your very first project. You'll be disappointed once it's over because you'll come to realize too late that all of the stuff that you've planned is just completely not feasible in a reasonable amount of time. This is what happens all too commonly with new developers. It's even happened to me. This is your first project. Don't expect it to be a breakthrough. Just something that can prove to you that you're capable of doing these things. So once you're done planning your project, literally the next step is to just get it done. Reference those tutorial projects. Use them to speed up your process. Take what they've done and apply it to what, like, you followed the tutorials for a reason, and especially it's to literally take what they're doing and put it into your project. If you're really stuck in a rut when it comes to like the music or the art or whatever, there are so many free assets available online. But especially, make sure you're practicing art and music outside the game development setting. And I know this might seem contradictory when I just announced the use of AI music and AI art, but you can't really learn anything from AI music and AI art because both those things are just smashing together what a bunch of people in a database have done and just putting together all of like the common traits. There's not much you can learn from it. You should learn from, actual tutorials from actual people who know what they're doing in the process. At the end of the day, the emphasis is learning. So here's a couple of the free tools that I've used to help you get started. There is absolutely no monetary commitment you have to make to game development. If you don't like it, then it's perfectly free to get started and it's perfectly free to quit. All of these links will be in the description so that you can check them out for yourself. First of all, the game engine that I use is Godot game engine. That's this thing right here. It's really lightweight, so if you have a really bad computer, chances are it'll probably still run. If you have a drawing tablet, then I suggest using Metabank Paint or Adobe Fresco. Both of these are totally valid art programs and they're both completely free, surprisingly. For photo editing, I use GIMP, but really not too much. When it comes to vector assets, I really like to use Inkscape. It is a very good software. It's completely free and there's so many different things you can do with it. You can make clean and scalable assets without the need for a steady hand or a drawing tablet. All you need to do is just put points down and edit their settings, all that stuff. It's really good. You should definitely be using it if you want to make professional looking assets. For animation, I use Dragon Bones animation. It's basically like puppet animation, so it's not like an art software where you take it frame by frame. It's taking existing assets and moving those and creating like skeletons that, have these rules that you can use while you're animating. I put asterisks here because I do believe that the download link is broken right now, and it doesn't seem like the developers of it are being really transparent about what's going on. So if I can find a safe link, I'll put it in the description, but it might be a little bit shady, so if you don't want to download it, that's totally understandable. I do believe that Godot has its own resource for doing puppet animation and stuff like that, but you're just gonna have to look into that yourself. And for music, I use GarageBand for iOS. I'm putting a huge asterisk here because not everybody owns like an Apple phone or iPad or whatever, but if you do, it's completely free and it surprisingly bolsters a lot of variety. It's not like top notch, but it's serviceable. It gets the job done. And if you don't have any of those Apple products, I recommend beatbox.co. It pretty much has all of the fundamentals that you'll need to make music. It's a pretty good DAW, completely free. It does a lot of chiptune stuff, at least from what I remember, so if you really want to make like a pixelated game, beatbox.co is my recommendation. For saving your code and stuff, I use GitHub. It's like for version control, just in case you need to back up a couple versions of your game. If you're planning to make like huge changes to the way it works or whatever and it turns out to fail, it saves you a lot of time because you can just go straight back to that previous version. I've also used Scratch. Yes, I'm not kidding, but not like really like the coding part of it. I use it because it happens to also have a vector editor that, while more restricted than Inkscape's, I find the UI to be a lot more like intuitive. So maybe if you're making like a super simple asset and don't feel like opening up Inkscape, you could probably use Scratch's vector editor. For basic audio editing, I use Audacity right here. And for publishing my game, I publish it all on itch.io, which is completely free of that $100 publishing fee that Steam has. And you know, I've listed all of these things, but as I said before, there are probably way more things that I haven't listed or used before. Just search for it. You're totally gonna find something that's gonna fit your needs. Okay, thanks for listening to my crappy presentation. Bye.